Hello, everybody. Welcome to Poverty Hill Adventures YouTube channel. And today's video, I'm going to do something a little bit different than most of the other videos on this channel. And I'm going to talk about the old days. Winter's starting up here, and it's starting to get cold, and it'll be snowing soon. And whenever you talk to older folks, they always say how the winters now are not as bad as they were back when they were younger. And now that I'm one of those old guys, I have to agree with them. I agree with them 100%. Winters are not what they used to be. And I've got the proof to show everybody. I'm going to go back about, 40-some years ago when I was in my 20s, and I'm gonna show everybody what winters were like back then, and then you can compare them to winters today. Now, in my life, I've lived through some pretty tough winters. We've had some pretty crazy amounts of snowfall, and one storm we had 5 feet of snowfall off of the lake, and blizzards and high winds and heavy snow, and surprise storms early in the year in October that knock out power for days and days. We've had it all here, but I lived through the mother of all snowstorms, and that is the blizzard of '77. And I'm going to show everybody a little bit what the blizzard of '77 was like. I remember it vividly. If you live through something like that, you're never going to forget it. The blizzard of '77 was such a crazy snowstorm blizzard that it was reported all around the world, and that's the fact. I mean, it was making news not just in this country but throughout the world. It started out a tough winter. I mean, November and December were pretty rough, and we had some pretty heavy snows up into when the blizzard started, and we had a lot of snow on the ground before the blizzard of '77 started. If I remember right, it started on a Friday. I was 20 years old, and it was work. I was at work, and they were predicting blizzard-like conditions, and the folks that I worked for offered everybody the chance to either go home while before the blizzard started, or stay and work for overtime. Well, normally I would have stayed and worked for overtime, but there was some gut feeling that told me to get home, and I'm glad I did. I was driving a Chevy half-ton two-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive Chevy half-ton. Had snow tires on it. I don't even know if they were radial tires. I think they were bias tires. So they weren't the greatest. The truck was not the greatest in the snow, but it wasn't unusual. There were a lot of rear-wheel drive pickup trucks and cars back then. Not like today, where everybody's driving a four-wheel drive or an all-wheel drive SUV or fancy pickup truck. Back then, four-wheel drives were work trucks, and there were guys that had them with snow plows on them, and a few folks had four-wheel drive Jeeps and such. But most people were driving rear-wheel drive vehicles back then, and that was part of the problem. Well, let me get to the story. I left work early, and I started my way home, which was normally about a half hour commute, and it was close to, I believe, a 5-hour commute that day, and I was one of the very few people that made it home. Those that had stayed for the overtime pay were stranded at work for, I believe, over a week. I don't remember the exact number of days, but I somehow made it home that day. Gridlock, zero visibility, driving through snow drifts. It was tricky. So what I want to do is I want to show everybody a book that was written about this storm, and a couple other mementos that I have from back then to prove to everybody that winters really were tougher back then. So check out this book. This book is titled White Death, and the author got that title from a newspaper article down in, I believe, Africa. And Africa, at the time, was reporting about the blizzard up here, and the title of that newspaper article, I believe, was White Death. And what they're referring to is the snow that fell. Several people lost their lives during that storm. Here's a copy of the book I was referring to, White Death, the blizzard of '77. It was written by Erno Rossi, and it's a very interesting read. My particular copy is autographed by the author, and it says, "Beware of snowflakes." I marked some of the pictures in here to show everybody. Here's a picture of a buried house. The snow drifts were so high that they actually covered houses. Picture of snow drifts as high as the power lines. Here's a picture of what they were referring to as snow canyons. Actually, that shows you how deep the snow was. Here's a picture of the National Guard airlifting in some large trucks with snow blowers on them. Not snow plows. The snow plows, the snow was just too deep for them. They were actually using these giant snow blowers and construction equipment. Here's a picture of somebody shoveling off their roof. This is a very interesting book. It has a lot of first-hand accounts of what people went through during the blizzard, and an interesting read. I'm sure you can probably still find this book on the secondary book market, or maybe even online. They might have an online version of it. Of course, after the blizzard, different folks were trying to make a little money off it, and they were selling these coffee mugs here. And it says on here, the Great Western New York Blizzard of '77, January 28th through February 2nd. That storm lasted several days. It wasn't just a 24-hour blizzard. And I'm going to read this little bit here on here for everybody. Driving winds to 70 miles an hour, chill factor minus 60 degrees, travel impossible, thousands stranded, National Guard called in, food and gas shortages, federal disaster area, guardsmen battling 25-foot high drifts, roving gangs, widespread looting, snowmobile rescue, $170 million in losses. Now you got to remember that's 1977 dollars. Western New York paralyzed. Weeks later, the people were still struggling back. There you have it. The blizzard of 77. The blizzard of 1977. I hope we never have to go through something like that again.